right. So thank you for coming in today, Adriana. How are you doing today?
I'm well. How are you?
Great. So before our meeting today, I had you fill out the Myers-Briggs Type Indicator career report, and I have your results here that we're going to go over shortly. But first, I wanted to ask what you wanted to kind of get out of this meeting today.
Yeah. So I wanted to get out of this meeting just a better sense of myself. I agreed to take the assessment because I knew that it would help me direct my career path in a better direction. I have an idea of what I want, but I wanted to see if there were other interests that I'm not thinking about.
Great. Well, I think the Myers-Briggs Type Indicator was a great assessment for you to take then because it is meant to help you identify some job families and occupations that are a good fit for your reported MBTI type. And it's based on interests, so it's not necessarily super skills based, but it's based on interest with your personality type. Um, so, yeah, we can find a specific job or career for you. If you are interested in changing your graduate career path, you can think of other programs that you might need, programs of study. You can identify your own strengths and potential weaknesses so that you can keep that in mind when you're looking for jobs and what you might need to work on as far as weaknesses. And you can look at increase your own job satisfaction through seeing what kind of work environments work better for you. This can help you make a career transition or a shift or plan your own kind of career development strategy and action steps for your future years. So hopefully we will be able to go over that with you. So before I tell you what your type results were, what was it like answering these questions?
Some questions were harder than others to choose because they gave me the option of dislike, strongly dislike, uh, agree. I forget how it was set up, but
Mm-hmm.
sometimes it was hard to distinguish whether I strongly dislike something or I just dislike it. So I found that quite interesting, and I wish that I could have chose between just agree or disagree in some of them. But I think it gave me a better sense of things that I just didn't like, and then things that I'm just oh, I don't like it, but I wouldn't mind it either. So
Right.
yeah, it just told me it made me be specific, um, which I'm not always so specific, but yeah, it was different.
All right. Well, we'll see if you agree with the type that I gave you or not, and then we can go from there. So right here on this page, you will see that your listed type, you were given 4 different letters as your type, and we'll talk about what each of those mean in a minute. So you were INTJ. So the first section here where you were listed as I for introversion, the other version of that you could have gotten is extroversion, but you were listed as introversion. So this does not mean shy versus loving to talk to people and being outgoing. This is more so where you focus your attention. Do you focus on the inner worlds and think before speaking, or do you prefer to focus on the outer world of people's inactivity? So right now, it listed you there as introversion. Would you agree or disagree with that?
I definitely agree with that.
Okay, awesome. The second letter that you got was N, which is intuition, which actually starts with I, but because of introversion, they had to do N. So intuition or sensing, this is the way that you take in information. So for sensing, which is the one that you did not receive, the people who receive sensing tend to take in information through the 5 senses and focus on the here and now, versus intuition tend to take in information from patterns and focus on the future. Do you agree with your intuition?
Um, I definitely agree. Definitely, I've been working on trying to sense better and think about the now,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm someone who thinks about the future more than I think about what's going on at the present moment. So yes, I do agree.
Okay, great. Now, the third letter is thinking and feeling. So, this is the way that you make decisions. So, feeling is when people make decisions based on values and subjective evaluations of people centered out concerns. And thinking, the one that you received, people tend to make decisions based primarily on logic and objective analysis of cause and effect. So, do you agree with thinking versus the feeling here?
Yes.
Okay.
Definitely. I find myself telling people to hold on, let me think about it before I give you an answer all the time. So I would say yes.
Well, good. So far, so good. And then our last letters here are J and P. So, judging and perceiving is how you deal with the outer world. So, perceiving are people who like a flexible and spontaneous approach. They like to keep their options open, like to be spontaneous, make decisions that way. Judging, which is the letter that you received, these people tend to like planned and organized approaches, you know, making the lists, having a 5-year plan, things like that. Another thing with this is judging does not mean that the assessment is telling you that you are judgmental. That is the word that they chose to indicate planned and organized preferences. So do you agree with judging?
Yes, I'm definitely an organized person.
Okay.
So.
Well, that's good. So it seems that you generally agree with the results that this assessment gave you. So hopefully the outcomes and recommendations for occupations it'll provide will prove to be fairly accurate. So one more thing on this page I wanted to note is that this assessment also brings about, it shows you your preference clarity index. So that shows like how much you preferred each of these letters. So if you see here, introversion and judging they were moderate preferences, so those were pretty clear. But your intuition and thinking were only very slight. So it's interesting that you still very positively agreed with them, because it looks like, you know, if you would have taken the assessment and answered one question differently, you may have been put in sensing instead. So you could really go either way there, but the rest of the assessment will base on INTJ. So keep that in mind. Okay, so now this page goes over how your MBTI type could affect your career choice and what kind of work tasks and work environments you might prefer. So there's 5 or 6 kind of options here. So look through those really quick and see if you agree with those work tasks and work environments.
Yes, I agree with them. But it kind of makes me feel like this is all I really like.
What do some of them say that you agree with?
Like analyzing complex problems and finding solutions to stuff. Like I do enjoy that stuff, but I also like don't want like that to be my only type of job that I'm doing.
Right.
Whatever I choose to do. And that's what it makes it sound like. So not to say I don't agree, because I do agree, but it's not the only thing that I do.
Sure, you don't want that to be the only part of your job. Yeah, sure.
But I do enjoy like challenging people and having people think about some of their actions and stuff like that. So I can see like where this is coming from.
Okay, great. What about the work environments?
I can see that too, like providing opportunities to work on complex problems again. Is hard driving and achievement oriented. I'm not only achievement oriented though, like, so I do want to note that, like, I do like achievements, but I also don't want my career to be focused on just achievements. Like,
sure.
You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But like I said, I do like to challenge people and offer opportunities. Offering opportunities to work with people who are experts in the field, I definitely agree with that. Like, anytime I can speak to an expert about something, then that's what I like to do.
Awesome. Well, we will consider that as we keep going through this. So, on our next page here, we have a list of what your type, what the strengths that are typically associated with your types are, and then some challenges as well with suggested strategies. So let's read through these and see if you agree with these. First, let's go over the strengths, and then we will cover the challenges.
Okay, so
So do you find that these are also what you feel your personal strengths are?
Mm-hmm.
At least some of them?
Yeah. So determining a long range goal. If I'm not determining my long range goal in something, which I usually try to do, like, what's the outcome of this? I try to ask someone else, like, what's their long range goal and things like that. So I do want them to ultimately get to that goal. So I can see back to where the achievement oriented piece comes from. I can see that now a little bit better now that I see this. And I like to focus on the big picture, but I know that I need to also focus on smaller things.
Sure.
But yes, my strengths, I do understand that. For my challenges,
Yeah, is there any one of those that sticks out as being like, yeah, I agree with that, or
so
no, that's not me?
definitely sticks out. You may focus on the big picture and neglect the details. Exactly what I just said. Like, I know that sometimes I see this vision in my head and I forget about all the small things that need to go into this before I jump in. And deciding too quickly. I feel like sometimes that does happen. I'll say, oh, just do this. And then I'm like, I sit there and I go back to my thinking and I'm like, I should have told them this to do this instead of this. So I'll have to go back and retrace my steps and say something differently than what I said the first time. Sure. Not that I'm like, more than likely it's just adding to what I said, but sometimes I do make decisions quickly. So those two stick out the most to me.
Okay, well, let's look at what the suggested strategies for those say, so that especially in job interviews, you can kind of keep these kind of things in mind. Like, if someone asks you what your weakness is, you can come in with a prepared response for, this is what I'm doing to work on this. So you said you may decide too quickly. So it suggests that you make sure you collect all the facts about a job and plan for a cooling off period before you make a decision. So if someone offers you a job interview, maybe don't necessarily accept right on the spot. They usually let you have some time to think about it so that you can process all that information, do some additional research before you put yourself in a position that you may not have all the information for. And the focus on the big picture challenge suggests to prepare a fact sheet of specific questions to ask about a current job. So that's just kind of giving you practice and asking more detailed questions and considering all of that. So one thing to consider with these is it's easy to look at these challenges and say, like, wow, I agree with all these challenges. I really want to work on all these. But don't expect yourself to need to change all of these right away. If you're willing to try to work on some of your challenges, weaknesses, you can pick one or two to start with and work on them until you kind of feel more comfortable, and then you can work toward others. You probably would not be as successful if you try to change 4 or 5 things about you at one time versus focusing on 1 or 2. Okay. So next Next, now we have how your MBTI type affects your career development. So these are some ways that your type has helped you develop certain strengths and some other challenges that are associated with your type. So let's also go over this and see if these, if you agree with these.
So I agree with some of them more than others. Not saying that I disagree, but some of them more than others for the style, for how my style has helped me develop strengths. For the challenges, I don't really feel that I'm cold or distant. When I focus on a task, I always try to make sure that I'm present. Sometimes that can be challenging, so I wouldn't say cold or distant, but like I make it aware that I am still paying attention.
Sure,
even
so
if
you're
I'm
putting
looking
effort
at
toward it.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But I can see how that could be a challenge as well. Neglecting to see the needs of people when I'm implementing plans. I'm not sure about that one, but I don't know. And neglecting to recognize or appreciate the contributions of others. I try to always recognize others in everything that I do. So I'm not 100% sure about the challenges,
Sure.
but I mean the challenges. I do feel that there are things that I could work on doing more, but I wouldn't consider them challenges.
Okay. What were some of the strengths that you said that you agreed with or disagreed with?
Not saying that I disagree with them.
Mm-hmm.
I just agree with some more than others.
Of course.
So thinking strategically and seeing the big picture, I definitely agree with that one. And devising innovative solutions to complex problems. Like, I enjoy complex problems, but like I said in the beginning, that's not something that I only want to do.
Mm-hmm. It can be an aspect of your job, but you don't want that to be your whole job. Yeah.
Yeah, but as far as like applying technical expertise to solve problems, I'm not a huge like researcher or anything like that. So when I can, I try to, but yeah.
Mm-hmm. Sure, definitely makes sense. These are all good things to keep in mind. Like I said at the beginning, those two middle scores of yours were very similar. So you could be kind of in a middle ground with those two that could be impacting some of these results. Okay, so now we're on to our job families and occupations section. So this section of the MBTI report covers 22 broad occupational categories that they call job families and a few specific occupations that show how popular they are amongst other people who have your same MBTI score. So this is divided into those that are most attractive to your score, which is INTJ, those moderately attractive, and those least attractive. So it's important to keep in mind, definitely consider all the job families and occupations that are listed in most attractive, but also look at the ones that are moderately and least attractive, because just because someone who's also an INTJ doesn't like something, that doesn't mean that you don't, because there are many more individual varieties than these 4 letters. And yes, so let's go over to your lists. So let's take a second, and can you highlight any of these categories first? We'll do the categories first that you agree that you would be interested in learning more about. All right. So it looks like you're more interested in some of the moderately attractive job families, which is totally fine. Like I said, there's always going to be individual differences. So you have architect as a possibility, education, business, arts and design, and community and social services. So give me some reasons on why you chose a couple of these options.
I've always been attracted to like architect, like how a building is built and things like that. So I'm not like I highlighted it, but I would want to learn more about it. Not saying that I would want that to be a career, but as far as education, like a teacher or something like that, maybe a professor, I could definitely see myself in that field. I have taught classes before, and like I extremely enjoyed it, but I would have to get more experience with the developing the class.
Sure.
So business and finance, I feel that that's a skill that everyone needs in some type of way, whether it's you keeping a spreadsheet of the expenses or something that you're doing in your current field, job choice, or I don't know, but I just feel like just having that knowledge is always good. Like listening to it on TV or podcast or something, like just exploring it in those ways. Art and design, like music, art and stuff, it's like things that I enjoy. And then community service and social services is something I enjoy. I love doing community service and being around different people. So these are things that I would look into more, but specifically the education field, because I think that helping part is what I enjoy a lot.
All right, great. It seems like you've thought about this a little bit, so that definitely helps our conversation. And okay, so now next, these are specific occupations that are most popular for your certain type. So it has the top 24 different most popular occupations for INTJs. So now let's just take a minute to go through those. You can highlight the ones that you find interesting. And if you have any questions about what any of these might mean, I can try to help you out.
So I don't see myself really doing a lot of these things because they're more sciencey, and science is not really something that I am interested in going into. But it did list education.
Okay.
So I think education is something that I would want to explore more.
Sure. Yeah, that's definitely interesting, because if you see here, it says that for your specific type, there are two main groups of occupations that generally appeal to this personality type, which is careers in the sciences and applied science, like natural science and applied science. So that's why you see a lot of these here. But back to what I said before, you have those two that are very in the middle. So you might be veering a little bit more to the, other direction there for some of your preferences, which is why some of these might not vibe with you so well. So for our last page here, we have a list of the least popular occupations for your career type. So we can kind of gauge what may not work for you. This doesn't necessarily mean that you need to steer away from these, but just know that they have very opposite like work environments, work types that your personality type made a result in. So do you kind of agree that you would not want to do many of these?
Definitely. Engineering is not something that I want to do. Installing things, no. Pharmacy, no. Maybe recreation worker, working with like sports teams, like kids sports teams or something. That's a maybe, but everything else on there dealing with like it deals with mechanical stuff, and that's not me.
Okay, well that's a good result then for these. But like I said, just because a job may have needs that are like different than your preferred work styles doesn't necessarily mean you can't make it work. If there are also some tips here for how to succeed in atypical occupational environments, so you can always make sure you're communicating with others, find other opportunities in your leisure activities to express your preferences if work's not fulfilling those roles, things like that. It's always possible. It's not always possible, but it's possible to work outside of what the MBTI tells you to work. Like I said, it's just a guideline. It gives you some ideas, but hopefully you learned a little bit from this today. Is there anything specific that you took from this meeting?
Definitely took away things that I know I'm not interested in, but just a better sense of myself, and the things that I do like, and exploring definitely more in education, and some of my different hobby interests are things that I would like to explore. So yes, I did take away something from this.
All right, great. Well, I'm always here for additional questions, and we can set up another appointment if you would like some more information.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.